To make the back wheels, I've gathered my 12 3-inch plain chipboard circles, my 4 chipboard circles that have been covered with black cardstock. I've got my 2 pieces of dowel and the pieces of lightweight chipboard and some rubber bands. So the first thing we want to do is mark and punch center holes in all of the 3-inch circles, and you can see that I've measured to the center just like we did when we were doing the boiler supports, and then I punched a hole exactly in that center spot. And then to make my life easier, I'm just going to take that top circle, which I'll designate as the master, and then make sure I've got it aligned there, and then just go around the inside of that circle with my pencil and color that in. And then I'll have the exact placement of my circle to punch for the rest of my circles. So I'll do that for all of my circles and then I'll be back. I have my holes all punched, and now I'm going to put the wheels together in sets of 4 with 3 plain chipboard circles and 1 black one on the top. Now we're going to do a glue up here, and you can use a dowel to help make sure you keep all of these in a line. If the dowel doesn't go in easily, you can see I have my little round file out here in case I need that. And then I'll just kind of twirl these around a little bit so that I, you know, in case the holes weren't perfectly punched, I'll get the best fit I can here. And then glue them up, and then I'll be back. So while the wheels are drying, I'm going to color my pieces of lightweight chipboard that I have here. Now these are the rims, and they will go around the wheels like this, and they're covered with black cardstock on the outside, so really we'll only see a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch on the inside, and then the edges will show. But I just find it easier to color the whole piece. It only takes a moment and not that much more ink, and then I don't have to worry about do I have it left or right or inside or outside, etc. So I'm going to color my pieces of the lightweight chipboard, and then I'll be back. Now we're ready to put the rims on our wheels, and when we put the rims on, they go flat against the back side of the wheel, which is the plain chipboard side, and they stick up on the front about 1/8 of an inch or so. So first what we want to do is just wrap it around and hold it tight. Make sure you don't have any gaps around there. And then just make a tick mark to show yourself where to trim this off, because these have been cut a little bit long. So I usually like to cut it off just a little bit too long to begin with, because you can always trim off some more. And then test that out. I can see I can take just a tiny bit more off. So now that I've done that, I just want to come back in with my marker and get that little space so I don't see any raw chipboard there. And then I've got some rubber bands at the ready here. I'm just going to put a bead of glue all around the outside here. And I'll put that down flat on my work surface. And put this around. Then I can take my rubber band one of those tasks that's a little tricky, but you'll manage it. There we go. Make sure that's flat against my work surface and that my ends are meeting up nicely at the end. And then I'll just set that aside to dry and repeat it for the other 3 wheels. And then to finish off the rims, we'll take our strips of 3/8 inch black cardstock that we cut to 10 inches long. And I'm just going to start mine a little bit off of where that seam is in the chipboard, and then just wrap that around and give that a good burnish at the bottom. And if you feel that it may not hold with just the score tape, you could put a drop of glossy accents or something there just for added insurance. So just go ahead and wrap the cardstock around all 4 wheels, and then we'll put them aside for a moment. Now we're ready to add some trim to the back wheelbase, and we're going to start by putting a piece right underneath here. So if you recall, we reserved our template that we used to cut this piece of decorative paper. So I'm just going to kind of check it up here and see how it fits. And it still looks good. So I can use that template now to cut my trim. So this is the piece that we cut that is 3 7/8 inch wide by 1 1/2 inch tall. And I'll just use my template and center that on there and draw and make this cutout. So now I've got my cutout made, and I just want this piece of trim to be 1/4 inch wide. So I'm going to take my ruler, and up here on the straight parts I'm going to draw a line down 1/4 inch. And then to get this to be 1/4 inch, I'm going to use a circle template, and I think it will probably be the 3 1/2 inch circle that will do the best. And if you don't have a circle template like this, you can just set your compass so that you make a 3 1/2 inch diameter circle, cut that out, and then you can use what remains just like this circle template. And I'll draw that curve and then cut that piece of trim. So I want this piece of trim that I've cut out to kind of mimic this front piece, so I'm going to add some of my little half pearls along here. I'm going to start with one kind of at the corner where the curve meets the straight part. I won't put any on the 2 ends, and then I'll just try to space these out with the same spacing that's on this trim, which is about every 1/2 inch. So I'll go ahead and get those added, and then I'll be back. So while our little curved piece, the pearls are drying there, we can measure and cut from this piece of 1/2 inch cardstock that was scored at 1/4 inch, and score tape has been added each side. We can measure and cut pieces of that fit from top to bottom of these front 2 corners. So I'll get that done. So now I have my 2 little corner pieces cut, and I'm just going to put some of my trim on each side and cut it and install it so it's symmetrical. So I'll get that done. So to do that, I just put one side on, and then I'll bring the other side on and just kind of line it up as best I can. And then just trim the ends even with the cardstock here. So I have my 2 little corner trim pieces done, and I made sure to ink the bottom and top edges of each piece. And then on the base itself, I'm just going to take a black marker and go along this bottom edge, because we're going to run the trim up to the bottom edge, but it's just going to meet on these bottom edges. We're not wrapping the corners. So just in case it doesn't meet perfectly, this way if we put a little black ink along there, we'll never notice that it's not perfect. Okay, so now this little curved piece has had enough time to dry, and we can put that up underneath here. So you can see how that's going to go. And then our little corner pieces are going to overlap that. So first we'll install this piece and just burnish in between your little pearls there. And we have our side corner pieces here. Now I think what I'm going to do is put them on, and then I can fit a piece of trim right in between them, and that will be easier. So we'll go ahead and get these two pieces installed. And then once we have those two corner pieces installed, we can go ahead and fit a piece in between. So that takes care of the front of this wheelbase. And now we can move on to the sides. So first on the side, again, I'm going to take my marker, because I'm just going to run this edge piece up right to the edge here. And I'll do that on both sides. And then we can measure and cut a piece that goes from top to bottom here. Okay, so we have our two ends on, and now we're ready to start working on the two strips that come across. And the first thing I want to do is to take two of my wheels and put the dowels in here. You don't have to go all the way in right now. They just have to, we're just using them to hold our wheels kind of in place. And now I'm going to take a piece of trim, and I don't want to have any of the little pearls behind where the wheels are going. Now if you don't have any pearls on your trim, you don't have to worry about this part. So I'm just going to raise up those wheels a little bit and stick this trim underneath here. And kind of play around with it till I get it where there aren't any pearls that are going to interfere with the wheels. Now, so hopefully you'll be able to work that out. So this is going to work for me, so I'm going to just make a couple little tick marks here so I can see where I want to cut this. And then also I can see that, and I'll just write down on a piece of paper, I want to keep the first 3 pearls on this end. Just write down how many you're going to keep, how many you're going to skip, because once you've cut this off, just kind of nick off the ones that would be behind the wheels. So I'll do that and then I'll be back. So I've got my piece cut to length, and I knocked off 2 of the pearls behind the tops of each of those wheels. I darkened the edges where I cut this, and now I can go ahead and get that installed up here at the top and give that a good burnish. And then for the bottom edge, when I hold this piece of trim up here, I think you can see that hardly any of it is going to show. So instead of using a whole long piece behind here where it's not going to show, I'm just going to cut some pieces that will show and get them installed, and kind of look out for my pearls again as I do that. So I'll put a piece on the end on either end and one in the middle, and make sure it extends back behind my wheels. So now I have these little pieces of the trim fitting in there. And when we glue our wheels on, we want to make sure that the whole wheel that is in this area is sitting flush or has a way to glue to this surface. So because these strips have some depth to them, we're going to fill in a little bit, and that's what these 3-inch circles that were specified at the beginning of this section are for. They've been backed with some sticky back, and what we're going to do here is take a circle and use one of our dowels and put that in there, and then we can see we want to cut out where it does not need to go past the base, and it should not overlap any of the trim. So what we want to do is just mark, and it doesn't have to come up exactly. It can come back just a little bit. Then I'm just going to peek underneath here and see where that goes, and it's kind of about like that. And over on this side, it's about to here. And then I'm going to cut it just a little bit shy of the bottom of the base. So I'm going to cut this out, and then we'll be back to see how it fits. So here is my piece that I've cut. You can see it's just a little bit shy of the trim and of the base here. It fits nicely in between, and it won't show because it was cut to the same size as this chipboard, and the rim will cover it up. But if you have any doubts, you can put one of your wheels on here, and you'll see that that won't show, and that will give us a nice gluing surface. So do these one at a time. Cut it, install it, because they won't all be the same, and so you don't want to get confused. Use your dowel to make sure it's in the center there, and just do that for all 4 wheels. So now I have my filler paper installed on all sides, and it's time to cut our dowels to length. So what we want to do is seat that dowel and make sure it goes all the way in. You can tell if it's going all the way in because it should be a little bit longer than an inch when it goes in there, just a little bit more. You'll feel it go in. And then draw a line right up against that dowel, and then add 1/4 of an inch, and then when you cut this, cut just inside that 1/4 inch line, so you'll have something that is probably not somewhere in between 1 1/4 inches and 1 3/8 inches. So again, make sure it's seated all the way in there. Draw a tick mark, come out and measure 1/4 inch past that, and then cut just on the inside of that line. Now you might want to erase this first line that you drew just so you won't get confused. And I would measure and cut each one and put it back into that hole, so they may not all be created equal. They should be, but just in case, that's what I would do. So I'll get my dowels cut, and then I'll be back. So here's my first little dowel, and I did take a minute with a emery board here just to file down any of the hard edges on the end of the dowel, and then put some glue right here on the tip. Can also put some glue on the inside of that hole. And when you push this in, it should only stick out about 1/4 of an inch, just a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch. So if it doesn't fit, if you're not feeling it go all that way in, you've got it hung up on that inside piece. But just repeat that for the other dowels. And you'll know if your dowels are the right length if when you put one of the wheels on, it should not come past the edge of the chipboard here. It doesn't have to be too far recessed, it just can't come past the end there. And if it comes past, just use your emery board. It should be sized correctly. And then I just thought I'd show you, this is my cute little X-Acto saw and miter box. It's really handy for cutting things like dowels and small stock to the right size. So just thought I'd share that with you. So now we're ready to attach our wheels, and when I put these on, I'm going to put them on so that this joint in the cardstock is at the bottom. And you can just actually use this black cardstock circle or semicircle here as an outline for where to put your glue. So we'll just put some glue on. I'm going to put some around the dowel here too. Look for the placement of my join there and put that down. Give that some good pressure, and we'll let those set up and dry. To decorate the wheels, I'm going to use some layers, and these are cut so that they'll have a black reveal. So first I have some circles that are 2 3/4. These orangey ones in the back here are 2 3/4 in diameter. Then I have some black cardstock circles that are 2 1/2 inches in diameter. And then I'm going to cut some other feature elements to decorate the inside of the wheels, and they will be cut at 2 1/4 inches. And so from this Eclectic Emporium paper, I'm cutting this circle here, the Universal Metal Polishing Paste. To do this, I've cut a square out that's 2 1/2 inches. I've already done that here. And then I can just back it with some either score tape or something like Stick It, and then cut out my 2 1/4 inch circle. I have a die that's that size. If you don't have a die, you'll just make a 2 1/4 inch circle around there. So we'll have 2 wheels that are like that. And for the other 2, I'm going to use an element from this Time Warp paper, and I'll use my template to figure out where I want to cut it. This is a 2 1/4 inch circle. If you don't have a template like this, just use your compass and cut out a 2 1/4 inch circle, and you can create a template. Figure out where you are going to want to cut that, and then again cut out a 2 1/2 inch square to begin with, and then use a die or a compass to cut the 2 1/4 inch circle. So I'll get my decorative elements finished, and then I'll be back to do the layering. So I got my feature circles cut out, and I've inked both them and my other decorative paper circles, and now it's time to layer. And I'll just kind of eyeball these, and we'll see about 1/8 of an inch reveal as we do each layer here, and we'll end up with this times 4. So I'll get that done, and then I'll be back. So now the glue has set up on my wheels. They're nice and attached, and I've got my layering done for the decorative elements, and I think I'll put them on in this order. and I keep reminding myself that the birds are towards the top. And I want to try to keep them straight here. And there's also a reveal. I think if I slide this over a little bit, you can see that there'll be enough room for a reveal all the way around of the black that's behind this black that's right here. So use your mat, use a ruler, use something to help you keep these square and plumb as you put them on. And just to remove, you should have sticky back paper on each one of these, and so they can all get attached like that. So I'll get that done. So here's our decorative paper attached. It actually wasn't too hard to line up because these elements had some horizontal lines that I could line up with the trim to help keep them straight. And then I noticed as I was doing this that this chipboard in here, it doesn't really show because when the locomotive is this way, it's pretty close to the ground and in shadow. But you can see that here I've just taken a black magic marker and darkened that in, and that'll be just fine. I'll do that on the other 3 wheels as well. And then that's our back wheelbase completed to this point.